trouble comes screaming, we always holler back. Don't let it get us down or throw us off track. When we stand together, we're stronger than that.
Welcome, Fort Wayne. We the People, presented to you by the Fort Wayne 912 Group. And here with us tonight, we have Kent Summers and Mike Carey, Lisa Summers, and Bill Wilcott, and I am Carmen Young, your host. We'd like to talk to you about what the organization is about and how you might like to join us. To start off with, Lisa, can you tell me why you're called the Fort Wayne 912 Group?
Our name, Fort Wayne 912, the most important part of that is the numbers 912, and it's very significant because it refers to a date, 9/12, the day after 9/11. And it's a way of reminding us how at one time our country was all united. We were not focused on whether we were rich or poor, black or white, Republican, Democrat. We were only focused on the fact that we were Americans and that we united together. People did things for one another on 9/12, the day after 9/11, that horrific incident. The next day, we all came together. People offered things to people they didn't even know on the street just to help because we all felt so impacted by what happened to us on 9/11. And the group is devoted to trying to unite people back to that feeling. We have 9 principles and 12 values, and they were developed for that reason, to be significant to that date. Our 9 principles are the most important part. You don't have to believe in all of them, but if you believe in 7 or 8 of our 9 principles, then that's a foundation on which we can unite, or that we hope to unite our country.
Thank you. Bill, what are the dues or expectations of the members?
There are no dues. We basically, just like a lot of nonprofit groups, we pass a hat at our meetings, and people are free to contribute financially as they see fit. As far as expectations go, we really don't have many expectations except maybe just be polite and cordial to everyone there.
So what do you do with the money that you get passing the hat?
We keep track of it. We have a treasurer. We track everything in a ledger. As far as expenses go, we will use it to pay for refreshments if necessary. We'll also organize different activities to pay for printed materials. We have paid for advertising in the past to draw more of the public into our events, and basically anything that we kind of vote on as a group and see fit for expenditures.
So does that also finance the website that you have?
So we do have some
Paid
folks
for out of pocket.
Yeah, it's that take care of that on their own. We do have some people that donate their time or their facilities to the efforts of the group. Our meeting place on Hillegas Road, the Classic Cafe, the proprietor there, he donates the facility to us free of charge, and he doesn't expect anything, and supports our group that way.
So he must believe in the cause of what you're doing, and that's his way of sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so. Absolutely. Very much so.
Right.
It's very, very kind. Mike, what was your reason for joining the group?
I think my reason was fear. You listen to the radio and listen to the news and see what's going on, and I think it made me a bit afraid, but I thought I couldn't be the only one that feels this way. And so, I don't know, I think it was back when Glenn Beck when it started the 912, basically, I went to the meeting. And there's a whole group of people on the same page I'm on. Mm-hmm. So, basically, it was probably motivated by fear, but I was looking for like-minded people, I think. And that's what caused me to join the group.
Why did you join the group, Bill?
Well, prior to getting involved, I hated politics. I still hate politics. But, you know, there were some things that occurred that I heard about in the media. I never really paid much attention. But there were a few things that were going on that just set off some red flags for me. And I got myself informed. I started listening to all of the media because I was hearing a lot of contradiction amongst what was being reported on particular issues. So I obviously needed to find out who was telling the truth, who was spinning the facts, who was just blatantly lying, and who was just completely ignoring issues altogether. And it was very easy to figure it out, and so I found some sources that I felt were reliable, doing fact checking on what they were reporting, and so I've stuck with those sources. Then learning more and more as to the downward direction of our nation, I felt a need to get involved. I just had to do something. I couldn't sit back, and as everybody else, as Mike was saying, you know, I started feeling, you know, for lack of a better term, lonely. It felt like I was the only person, but then I reached out and found others who thought as I did and felt as I did, and it was a good sense of relief to get involved.
It is a good feeling to be among like-minded people, because sometimes we work in an environment or we teach in an environment where people are just the opposite of what you feel, and it's good to have that. Bill, going along with what you said, please tell me why the average person who works hard to take care of his family should even care what's happening to the government.
Well, because basically, I mean, the government, through laws, can do anything it feels. You know, if you live under a monarch, let's say, where you had a king, you are subject to the whims of that individual. Now, being in a representative republic as ours, you have a say. Now, the important thing is if your representatives don't hear from you, then you really have no right to complain about the atrocities that come to you or the intrusions into your life. It's really gotten out of control. Those are the things that we're here to inform people about. You know, the thing is that we don't need to tell people what to think and how to react to things. What we have found is that if we give them the truth and the information and what's in the bill, what's coming down the pipe, I mean, everybody is pretty much smart enough to figure out whether it's good or bad on their own.
Thank you. So, what are some of the things that you have done at your meetings or covered or talked about? Ken, what comes to your mind?
Well, we have a steering committee, a group of us, and all the individuals at this table are members of the steering committee, as you know, Carmen. And we try to identify issues that are pertinent today, whether they be local, educational. Common Core is a good example, which is a new potential regulation that are requirements or standards that will be established that are more on a national basis and take some control away from the local school boards and parents specifically. Or we gather for, we've had movie nights and shown movies. Probably one of the big events that we did was a little over a year ago, and it actually stands out in my mind. It was, we had a freedom rally where we brought in, as our keynote speaker, Jenny Beth Martin from the Tea Party Patriots. Now, we're not a Tea Party, but she, again, like-minded principles and values in her group's beliefs and ideas. So she was our keynote speaker, but more importantly, I think, and she was fantastic, but I think we had 3 other speakers that really resonated with us. We had Peter Heck, who talked about freedom of speech, fantastic speech. He's a talk show host out of Kokomo. We had Father Glenn Corman, a Catholic priest from, I believe, near the South Bend area, Elkhart, South Bend area, and he talked about freedom of religion. And then Fort Wayne's own Kevin Leininger joined and spoke about freedom of the press. And it was one of the events I thought, it was a pretty big deal we put together, brought a large crowd of individuals. We had music and we had speakers, but it was once again bringing a bunch of people together under some common goals and hearing some things and getting excited again to make sure that, hey, you know what, there's a lot of us out here, and if we all act, we can, I think, make some changes in this country.
Mike, what are some meetings that you remember that you thought were good for you?
Well, one that we put on, oh my, this was before the last election. We had a PowerPoint program where we went through the procedure for the Indiana General Assembly. How to get in touch with your congressman, your senator, how to watch a bill, you know, where a bill is in the session, and so on and so forth, and how long the session is, and how things work in the General Assembly, and things like that. We've become, to say the very least, complacent in our government, I guess, the best way to put it, in that we don't have a clue how things work.
Yeah.
When we got involved, I had no idea. How is the bill introduced? How do I follow it? How do I know who's done what? How is it amended? The whole 9 yards. I had no idea. So, that was one of the things, one of them that sticks out in my mind is going through teaching people, we had the entire group, and teaching them how to learn what their legislators are actually doing and keep an eye on them. And then you can contact your legislator and say, okay, I agree with this, I don't agree with that, or whatever. How to get in touch with your representatives, because this is, after all, government by the people. And that's one that I remember very well.
And I think it's important. We've heard back that they do listen to us.
Yes. And it does get results.
It does get some results.
Lisa, what do you think of as a memorable meeting that comes to mind?
Well, we've had some of our meetings, we've talked about something that's near and dear to my heart, which is healthcare. Healthcare is the thing that got me involved, or I guess woke me up and made me not be complacent anymore and start to pay attention. I work in the healthcare field. I know that's something I know about, and it affects me personally, so I started to pay attention when the new healthcare changes were coming around, and people started to ask me, what did I think about some of the provisions that, and I know some of the things that are wrong with our healthcare system, and I know that there are things that need to be fixed, and so of course I was keenly interested in that, and I thought, well, what better way to learn about what I think about this than I sat down and read the bill. Several thousand pages, it took forever, and it was very complicated because it's not written in medical ease that I could have understood. It was written in lawyerese, and so it was very complicated. But as I started to read it, I started to learn that some of the things that I had thought can't possibly be the bad things that they're saying, that can't be what is really in there, because we don't do that kind of thing in the United States of America. But lo and behold, I was horrified to see that those things were part of this bill, and that we were in the future, with the passage of that bill, going to start taking away the rights of people to make a free choice about their own health care, something that I think is one of the most personal things of all. And I was absolutely horrified, and it woke me up and got me involved. And then the more I got involved in the group, the more I spoke about some of this about some of the healthcare changes and what I had learned in the bill, and that was some of the things that we did at our meetings. But as I got more involved in it and I started to educate myself, I started to have a new appreciation for our country and for our freedoms here and for our self-governance. And I realized that I have a responsibility and a duty to be involved in this and to be passionate about the freedoms that we all take for granted. And I wanted that for other people. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn.
And you've done quite a bit of speaking since you have made your discoveries about the Affordable Care Act. And some of these speeches, I'd like the viewers to know, are available on our website, and they can find those at www.fortwayne912.com. I've been very impressed with everything I've read, and so thankful to you for what you have shared with us and made aware for us.
Thank you. I wish, those of us who work in healthcare, we recognize the problems that are present, and we're in that field because we want to help people. We want people to have health care available for everyone. It is available for everyone. The big question is, how's it going to be paid for? And this is something that the new healthcare changes have kind of taken on. And unfortunately, when you take over the responsibility of paying someone's bill, then you end up being the one to make the decisions about what they are able to have.
Correct.
And that's something with which I vehemently disagree. I think people ought to be able to make their own choices about their own health care. My job is to try and figure out what's wrong with them and present their options and let them make the choice. It's not for me to make the choice for them. And now, unfortunately, I can't even make that choice. It's now made for me. I have to go by what I'm allowed to order for people, and that's not right.
I find it scary how much of your personal information is going to end up in the master database.
It's very frightening, and unfortunately, one portion of the bill, it's required that all healthcare systems now be computerized, and so every single person in this country's most personal, private healthcare data is going to be in this database, which they make a promise several times in the bill. They promise that they will keep it safe and private, but then at the end of almost every one of those sections, I find a curious disclaimer at the end that says that, but that they won't be held responsible for the privacy laws. And I'm not quite sure how they're able to do that because I'm not a lawyer.
I find it shocking.
Well, think about it, Carmen, and with the news that's recently come out, with the leaks of information and the attacks from the IRS, and the IRS will have access to a fair amount of your medical records. It's not a huge leap, no conspiracy thought whatsoever here, but it's not a huge leap to sit here and think that many of our personal, most personal records, information that I cannot get about her at a doctor unless she authorizes my access to that information, will be available to IRS agents potentially anywhere in the country, and that is frightening, to say the least.
Well, the things that they called conspiracies, the things that prompted me to read the bill because of the things I heard that were, conspiracies and that couldn't possibly be there, and then I read them. They were there. It's shocking. It really is.
Well, you look at how easy it is for credit companies to make mistakes, and you have to review your credit, standings and make sure that all the data that's out there is really you and it's all correct. You have no way of correcting what the government has about your health records, and they could be making decisions about a life and death matter based on inaccuracies.
Correct.
It's just, I find that really scary.
Absolutely.
Really scary.
And you should.
Yep. Bill, tell me, what are some of the meetings that you remember as being your favorites?
I think one of the ones that stands out in my mind is the recent event we had where we had a couple of immigrants come in and speak and tell their background story. Really, nothing hits somebody more than a personal story.
Right.
They talk about what life was like in their country prior to their loss of freedoms. These are countries where they were free to begin with, and then a totalitarian regime came in and was able to take over one way or another. I think the thing that those presentations really emphasized was that they thought it couldn't happen there either. And that's what we hear a lot of people say when we talk to them and we try to throw up these red flags and say, hey, wait a minute, it's right here in the legislation. This is going to allow them to do it. And people just want to throw up their hands and say, oh, no, that can't happen here. And it's a state of denial. The fact is, like Ken mentioned, the IRS attacks on people, groups, organizations of conservatives, Jewish groups, and some large Christian organizations as well. It is happening here. These kinds of events are a sign of the beginning of what has transpired in so many other nations and led to horrible atrocities.
And I think it's interesting because if you ask why are they doing it, I think it's suppression. Most of these groups are doing something that someone doesn't like or some groups don't like. And unfortunately, that approach to suppress speech seems to be they're using the hammer of the IRS to suppress speech, is I guess what I was trying to say.
Well, it certainly is scary to me, especially when I heard that they were wanting to know the content of prayers of the Christians and how much involvement the Jews had, the Jewish groups in the United States, whether or not they supported Israel.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with an application for a 501c3 or your IRS status? I don't comprehend this. It's just pure invasion.
Well, and even if a person could make a logical argument about the questions that they ask, perhaps they can come up with some logical reason why they needed certain bits of information. The thing that makes it wrong is not treating all groups the same. You can't have certain groups held to a certain standard and other groups not. That's one of the principles that we hold near and dear, is equal justice. We all follow the laws. We are all treated the same. And that's something that they're not following. And that's wrong. And that ought to be something that should resonate with everyone, no matter where you stand on any issue, that we are all treated equal and the same.
On our website, Kent, there's a mention in the education section of the book, The 5,000-Year Leap. Why is that listed?
Sure. Here's a copy of the book. This is a book called 5,000 Year Leap by a gentleman named Cleon Skousen. This is what I would argue is really the foundation behind these 9 principles and 12 values. There are 28 ideas, concepts that are within this book, and it really does help lay out the foundation of what our founding fathers were attempting to accomplish, and what the basis for many of the positions they took and why they are in our Constitution. It's a wonderful read. I believe it's the phrase I like to use. It is it's the Principles of Freedom 101. It's sort of the basis of why we're doing what we're doing out here. It's a great read. As you can see, this copy has been dog-eared and tagged and everything like that. Margins written in. It's just one of those books that I would strongly recommend anyone in the audience that would like to learn more about this. They
Is
can
it a
read it.
scholarly read?
No, it's a very easy read. It's you can pick it up, and the principles or these principles or ideas are pretty short. You can read them at your leisure. You don't have to read start to finish to
You
understand
don't have to
it.
be
It's the
rocket
kind of
science
book
figure
that
out.
should be taught in middle schools and high schools.
Yes.
It gives you an
Absolutely.
appreciation for why is America so unique? Why is America so important? Why is it so important for people to be free? And what are your responsibilities if you live as a free society? Then you have responsibilities to understand and to self-govern.
So it gives us the vision that our founding fathers had.
Absolutely.
It gives
Absolutely.
you a very clear vision of
And even
why and what.
and the preface is very good too. It talks a lot about talking about the extremes, basically anarchy and all the way
Yes.
up to
And
totalitarianism or
Yes.
As if people don't know the definitions, they don't understand the explanations, they can't recognize if it's right in front of their nose.
Right. People, a lot of times people think that the Constitution is something that is set forth to govern how people should live their life, and it's not. The Constitution sets forth a set of principles for how the government should be restrained. The government the people should control themselves, and people should self-govern, and it's a way to restrain the government from infringing on the rights of the people.
Bill, is it true that 9/12 groups and Tea Party groups really are racist?
No, absolutely not. The only thing that we could say about racism in our groups would be if somebody who believes in those values or has grudges against one minority or another and things like that, they may be able to get into one of our meetings. And if they were to come in, I can assure you that if they began to espouse their ideals of such abhorred thoughts, they would immediately be asked to leave.
But a person like that would not be embracing the values and principles
Absolutely
that you
not.
hold,
Right.
and so
Absolutely
they'd be
not.
spotted as an outsider.
Absolutely contradictory.
Right,
Their
completely
behaviors, their
contrary to
statements, everything would be pretty obvious to I think all of us.
our principles of freedom, equal justice are completely contrary to any form of racism. And racism is commonly used as a target of trying to suppress people, and that's why they throw that term out to people like us or other groups. It's simply a way to make someone, if you're in an argument with someone and you can't win, and you call their argument racist or you call them racist, and people become so horrified by that they immediately shut up. It's a way of making people stop.
It's just a tactic.
That's right.
Yeah, and we do have people in our group who are of different races. And if
Absolutely.
anybody goes to our website, they'll see videos presented by other people, and it's very enlightening. I'm very, very pleased to know the people that I have met in our group. Amer McClinton has enlightened me about a lot of things.
Yes.
Yes.
He's a great man. So I hear that we're going to have some movie nights in the future. Do you know anything about this, or what kind of movies would you show? Are they for entertainment?
What would you show?
Well, there are a few movies that we have come to know. There's one out there called Agenda, Grinding America Down.
A great one that we'd love to show is called Runaway Slave.
Oh, yes.
One of our founding members is in that movie.
That's Emory.
And Emory is
Emory,
in
yeah.
that movie, and it's a wonderful movie about the history of Black Americans, and it's fabulous.
Yes.
Something everyone should watch. we own several copies of it. We've viewed it independently. We'd like to show it at one of our meetings so everyone can see it.
It's not exclusively historical, is it? It's about contemporary
Right.
Black
Very
society.
interesting.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
very much contemporary.
The film really emphasizes and points out a major hypocrisy that we see in politics that's been going on for a good 50, 60 years, starting back with I believe it's the New Deal under Johnson. And, there are those out there who claim to support the minority groups, but yet their actions and legislation that they pass bring them down. It's unfortunate, and the movie really educates you on that, informs you about it.
Monumental's another great movie out there, and then Global Warming, the great
Global Warming Swindle is the sort of the antithesis to Al Gore's movie that I think many people consider to be hogwash, and it has the scientists, many of whom actually did the scientific research that is touted as supporting global warming, when in fact that's not at all the conclusion that came from that research that they did, and they're in this movie. It's a documentary, very good documentary.
It's good to be able to share these with the community.
I think they're just they're movies I don't think I would have just picked up to watch, and then now that once you see them, I'm actually excited to see them again, or I've been actually very happy to share them. I can tell you right now, I know one of our copies of Runaway Slave, I think, made its way all the way to Arizona with some friends of ours.
Yeah.
They moved and took it with them, but that's fine, because I think that'll get used out there and communicate as well. They're just really some well-made movies, providing information, some knowledge that a lot of us didn't know. Monumental's a great movie from that
Great movie.
perspective.
Sure.
I'm very embarrassed to say I didn't know anything about this monument,
Right.
and I'm not going to go too much into it, but it's just a great movie that was very well done.
That's another one about the founding fathers.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So what do you see is the near future? Do you have anything on the agenda soon?
Well, we hope to do some more meetings that will help to inform especially local citizens about some of the things that are happening in our local governments. I think that's the one that's next slated for our group.
Yes, we need to be informed about city council and about the local government, state and federal, because all of it affects us.
Sure,
It affects our families, and we need to be the watchtower out there.
sure.
It's really important for us. Well, I thank each of you for coming today to be part of our group, We the People. And we have a website that is www.fortwayne912.com. And you can find videos there. You can find articles to read, lots of information, and lots of postings about things that are happening that you can join us. We have a meeting that's once a month, every third Tuesday at 6:30 at the on Hillegas Road at the Classic Cafe. And we invite anybody in the community to come and join us. And it's been great being here, and I thank you so much for
Thank you,
all of your
Carmen.
Thank you.
participation.
Thanks, Carmen. Appreciate it.
And it's been fun.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Life on love, for hope and faith. This is the start of the future we'll make, 'cause we're stronger than that. Trouble comes screaming.